Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are at today. I am certainly excited to be here today and thank you for taking the time to show up and be here today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Vessi Kapulian. I'm a former commercial lender turned real estate investor, actively investing in apartments. And today I help investors new to multifamily learn how to underwrite a deal from beginning to end, even if they have never done this before, in order to minimize the risk of loss. This is not my first live, and I've connected with many of you. So, for those of you who submitted questions and topic ideas for these live events, thank you. You know who you are. I will be covering those one by one, including today's topic, which I got a ton of questions on. And I thought before we dive into the technical part and doing live deal analysis, which I will include in future live events, the question, the first question I would answer is how to get your first deal and how do you even get started underwriting when you're working full time from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so this live event will be right for you if you are working full time, you want to invest in your first multifamily deal or maybe second multifamily deal, but you need some help and guidance and looking to get started while juggling all the responsibilities for life. So if this is you, type win in the chat. Type win in the chat if you're new to multifamily and want to get your first deal done even though you're busy as it is today. And this will also allow me to connect with you, which reminds me, if we have not connected, feel free to send me either direct message connection request that will allow us to connect directly and interact better, as well as to the extent you have questions, I'll be happy to address those. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And I don't have a slide deck today. We'll keep that organic and raw. And I will share the experiences that work for me. Now, there's more than one way to get started and get accomplished what you want to accomplish, but I'll speak to my experiences as well as those of others that I've encountered along the way and that I have learned from. So if you want to hear the truth and what you need to hear versus what you want to hear, then definitely stay on. If you're just looking for um, words without any meaning or something that's not realistic, then this is probably not for you, because I will be busting a few myths that I feel a lot of investors new to the space are faced in or made to believe. I went through some of those. I busted through those through some my own experiences, some great, some not so great. But I think it's important to share that with you and not sugarcoat anything. And I'll also share with you practical steps on how you can get started while working full time, being busy as it is. And so the steps I will share will be applicable probably to many of you, even if you're at different stages in the journey, meaning you're just starting or you're about to get started, or maybe you started but you still feel overwhelmed and confused. You will be able to take away valuable insights that you can apply on day one. So if you are committed to applying at least one of the learnings today, type yes in the chat, or win, even win. Type win in the chat if you are committed. I really want to see you guys succeed. And by the way, I do work with a lot of investors who are new to the space, and I've helped many, so happy to have a conversation about that as well. Or hi Haley, great to see you here. Thanks for joining. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And so the two key factors as you start planning ahead and thinking about the journey of investing in real estate is time and money. And so when it comes to money, there are a few key items that I want to share with you. And I wish I had known or learned these earlier, but as they say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. So it's never too late to get started. But number one is investing in assets and in non liabilities. And what do I mean by that? We all start somewhere, right? In most cases, we start as W-2 employees. You collect a paycheck. And especially if you're just starting a job, right? Graduating from college, maybe you're getting that big sign-on bonus or some sign-on bonus. Then eventually you start getting the salary, hopefully annual bonuses thereafter, depending on performance. And now our natural inclination is to grow into a new lifestyle, right? Whether it's getting that car, buying that house, buying that Gucci bag and whatnot. Um, but a lot of it boils down to, are you willing to take on short term pain to experience long term gain? And what that may mean for you in the beginning is really taking a hard look at what are the nice to have versus must have expenses that I'm willing to incur. And again, the answer will be different for all of you. But in my case, I come from humble beginnings. I was never really into high lifestyle and expensive cars or expensive clothes. It's just, I'm not um, judging anyone or saying this is right or wrong. It's not just something that I value. And so when I started, I made it a goal to save at least 10% of my paycheck. And as my salary increased, I didn't really grow into it as much. I tried to increase my savings. Similarly, for the bonus amount, I wasn't spending it on, again, upgrading my car or getting a new lease and whatnot. I was actually saving it. And that was helpful because, again, when I first started, I didn't have any savings, right? Or I had very small savings, basically not enough to invest in real estate. And I remember I was getting out of grad school back in 08, 09 when prices were dropping. And I was thinking, man, I wish I could buy right now. Now is the best time to buy. And sure enough, it was. But I wasn't liquid enough, right? I didn't have the balance sheet to do that. And so that was a very important lesson learned, is to focus on saving as much as you can, especially, again, if you in the beginning, to accumulate that safety net, that war chest that you can then deploy into cash flow producing assets that create additional income streams that you can stack over time. And so the first myth buster I will share with you is that it does take time, it does take work, it does take discipline. It took me a few years to get to a place where I had enough, what I call excess investable cash, to start thinking about investing in real estate. And again, real estate was the right solution for me. I'm not saying this will be the right for everyone, but I wanted a tangible asset that will hold its intrinsic value over time, and something that produces cash flow or additional income that I can add to my salary at the time to create that buffer. And so it does take time, it does take discipline, and you have to do the work, but it is possible. And it won't happen overnight. It won't happen when you buy a single property or even two, but it is possible if you stay in the game long enough. And so the other important step is, depending on where you're at in the journey, is take a step back and list all of your monthly expenses, right? And when you list those expenses, really distinguish between what are the nice have versus the nice to have versus the must have, right? So you have your shelter expenses like rent or mortgage, utilities, car expenses, food, healthcare, some discretionary, right? and add those up, and eventually you'll get to a number, and you'll see, especially if you track these over time, ideally track them for a year so you can capture any seasonal flows. But if that's too long for you, track them for 90 days, right, for 3 months, to get a good baseline of what these basic expenses, the must have versus the nice to have, look like. And then start working towards that number, meaning when you have enough liquidity, then start targeting cash flow producing assets that will take you there. And again, it's not going to happen with one or two property, but as you start buying those properties and start stacking them up one by one, those income streams eventually will increase. Some will do better, some may do worse, and over time, that's a good reason why a lot of people diversify. But eventually, they do stack up, and so in my case, it took about 7 or 8 years for me to get to a place where those income streams from the various investments I made covered my very basic living expenses. Again, I'm not talking about luxurious lifestyle, but something very basic. But once I got to that number, I had a peace of mind that if something was to happen with my job, I had at least one more option in addition to looking for another job. I had something to fall back on if something unexpected or an adverse event was to happen. Now, the other factor that I mentioned was time. Now, um, especially when you start out, you're very dedicated to your job and in your career, and that's all fine, but don't make the mistake that I did, working consistently 10 to 12 hours 5 6 days a week. Sure, in the beginning, maybe in the first year or two, that's fine until you establish yourself, but uh, your time before 8 a.m. and your time after 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. is your time. So use it to build what you're looking to build in the long run. And for me, again, that was creating a cash flowing real estate portfolio, and that requires a ton of discipline, right? That also requires you to be productive during the hours of 8 to 5 or 8 to 6, whatever the hours are with your employer, so you fulfill the commitment you have to them. But beyond those hours, that's your time. And so I would say, I mean, ideally, right, if you can dedicate, the more time you dedicate, the better. But if you're constrained on time, start with 1 hour a day, and first start by getting educated at least once a week. Go to a networking event where you can connect with other active or passive investors. Get a coach or mentor, ideally, to save you the time and the costly mistakes. And if you're serious about learning and doing the work, I do work with investors who are new to multifamily. And at the end of this, I will share with you the link on how you can join, or you can go to masteringmultifamilyunderwriting.com for more details. I want you to become a savvy and successful investor, just like many of my students have. So simply reach out if that is you, and you want to learn more. But that's the path that I took myself, even though I had the lender background, and I had the experience of evaluating deals from the downside. I wanted to learn the investor angle and evaluate the opportunity or the upside, right? These are two yin and yang, I guess, conflicting, not in a bad way, but two opposing views. And so what did I do? I got into a community of like-minded individuals, and I got a mentor. And then the last piece is you have to do the work, right? It's not going to happen by just watching videos or reading books. You have to take action. And the very first step, irrespective of how you choose to get involved in multifamily, whether it's actively or passively, whether it's finding deals, raising capital, managing the deals, the very first step that I advise everyone to take is to learn how to evaluate deals, because the last thing you want is to lose all that hard-earned money that you've been saving in many cases for years investing. And so again, if you're serious about it, that's something I can help with, and I've helped many students, about 20 students in the last year. And my goal this year is to help at least 40 more, and I do have some capacity to take on existing students. So if you want to learn more, you can go to masteringmultifamilyunderwriting.com, or even better, just text me at 318-490-0671. Text multifamily, and I actually will share with you a special bonus that I will be running. I'll give you early access to that. And so you have to start underwriting, right? And learn how to analyze deals. And the next question I typically get is, okay, that's all great, but how do I even find deals? Well, if you are investing passively, right, then those deals will be presented to you by fund managers or syndicators and operators. And the best way is to find who those operators are, because I would say that's probably the very first step, is find something you know, like, and trust, who has the experience, who shares your values, who has the track record, who is open to communicating. And how you find those people is either through referrals from fellow investors that you met at one of these conferences, or local meetups or virtual meetups. Also, in social media, you can connect with sponsors, but I would always caution you, and just because someone has a huge or prolific social media profile doesn't necessarily mean they may be the best fit for you. So definitely do the vetting, and I help my students with that. And if you have questions on how to vet sponsors, I actually post on LinkedIn daily as well. And now, if you're active, meaning you are the one who is finding deals, underwriting deals, arranging the financing, managing the deals, selling the deals, then you start by connecting either with brokers or going direct to owners. Now, 80 to 90% of the deals in the market are typically sourced by brokers. And so in my case, working full-time, I chose to go where the 80 to 90% of the deal volume was, and that entailed developing relationships with brokers in the markets that I was interested in. And then you start underwriting each and every one of those deals. In the current environment, I was actually having a conversation with someone the other day, and they were discouraged, right? Because they had underwritten deal after deal, and nothing is penciling out. And when I probed a little bit further, I happened to find out they had underwritten 30 deals. And that's not a bad number to start with. But the reality is, in the current market, if you wanted to find a deal in the next 12 months, you have to underwrite about anywhere from 300 to 400 deals in the next 12 months, right? So and of those, you'll probably submit 5 to 8 letters of intent, and of those, 1 or maybe 2 will pencil out. And so it's really a numbers game, which is why I was saying earlier, you have to stay in the game. You have to believe that this is possible for you, and I know it is possible for you, because not only I've gone through that path, but I've seen many, and that's just the reality of it. So just because you're an underwritten deal 100, that's you're 100 steps closer to finding the next deal. And so in future lives, I will be going through underwriting a live deal. We may have to break it down in components, because I try to keep these lives to about 20 minutes or so, and leave some time for questions. But before I open it up, again, if you want to work with me and if you're serious about doing the work, you can join the community, and you can text me multifamily at 318-490-0671, and I'm gonna actually put that right here. So text multifamily to this number, and I'll share with you a special promotion that I will be running in the end of, given that it's the end of the first quarter, and I'm really rooting for you, and I want you to end 2025 strong. So I will be providing a a discount to my self-paced online course version that comes with access to the community. So it's not just watching videos, but it has case studies. We walk through the entire process step by step. And then you also get 2 hours of one-on-one support. I post weekly tips and strategies in the community. And we also meet monthly. We have group virtual calls because my students are nationwide. And so that's one option. If you just want to get the course with no additional support, no access to the community, I'm going to discount that option to $297, and normally that's $525. So you can take advantage of that offer. And again, just text me multifamily and I'll send you the limited time link, which will expire. So I was able to stay on time. So what questions do you have? And I did receive a couple, but what questions do you have for me? And while we're waiting, because I know there's usually a bit of a delay between YouTube and LinkedIn and when I receive the comments. So I'll share a couple that people who couldn't join the live wanted me to share or expand on. And these are probably questions that some of you will have. How do I get started? Well, I just shared that. You can just DM me or text multifamily to the number that you see on the screen, and I'll connect with you, including sharing the special limited time offer that I just briefly mentioned. How long does it take to get your first deal done? Well, it could take up to 12 months, right, given the current environment. So it's really a numbers game. Now, for most of my students, one question is, well, how long does it take them to underwrite a deal from beginning to end? And it's usually about 12 weeks if you go through the modules, if you do the work, do the homework, show up at the monthly calls, engage, ask questions. And again, you're not by yourself. I am there in the community. Again, during the group calls, I address questions that people have. So you're not just sitting there watching watching videos by yourself. And if that's the approach you like, then you probably want the more trimmed down version without community support. But I'm there helping my students every step of the way. What if I have zero experience is another question that I get. Well, guess what? Most of my students, actually almost, I want to say all of them, have full-time jobs or are full-time occupations. So they're building their empires on the side. They're building their real estate portfolio on the side. So I know it is possible. That's how I started myself, working full-time and building that portfolio on the side. So don't let that deter you. And let me tell you, none of them are commercial lenders or underwriters. So they come with zero or very minimal multifamily underwriting experience. Some have experience investing in single family homes and basically the residential space, but some started with none of that. And again, they are able to go through the 5-step process and evaluate a deal from beginning to end. So I've seen it work with my students. That process worked with me as well. So I know that it will work for you as well. So, well, I really appreciate you being here today. Appreciate your engagement. Appreciate the interaction. And if you have any further questions, simply DM me on any social media channel. Primarily, LinkedIn is where I hang out, but I'm also on YouTube periodically and Instagram. And you can follow me there because, again, I will be doing more of these lives, really with the goal of demystifying the underwriting process and really helping you get started and helping you take that first step today versus one day. Have a great day. Ciao.